Sometimes we are completely confused about what our purpose in this world is and what to do about it. If you are here because you really don't know which way to go, you're kind of unsure of how to bring out your best qualities, this is meant not as a commandment of the muse, but more like an exercise to figure out what you want right now and like who you really are. So I think it's totally normal also for our careers to evolve many times in our lives, or maybe we just go through little stints where we're like, this is what I want to do, and that's true, and then we evolve from that, or we learn our lessons and we're like, I think I want to upgrade or something, or I want to go to a different direction entirely. That's all normal. So for whatever reason you're here, use this as just a little device to do some reflection on what you want. And even if you pick the wrong card, it still gives you a moment to be like, definitely not that. Just use it as a little tool to expand your consciousness around what you actually want and who you are. So I'm doing this with the intention of bringing you light, clarity, and giving you a little leg up on just feeling like you're in charge of what you want to do and where you're going to go. So first, let's pick a card. Pick a number, and then look in the timestamp below. Here we go. Number 1, here you go. All right, I'm gonna pull randomly. Okay, we have Wish Fulfilling Gem to start, inverted. I'm gonna pull another card over here. Cursor inverted. Dog inverted. Woof. All right, so Wish Fulfilling Gem. What did I get myself into? All right, so Wish Fulfilling Gem. You see these two figures. This is the Lover's card of the Tantric Bikini, and that is inverted here. Cursor. This is incarceration. This is jails, limitations, and then dog inverted. So it's saying that like your career might involve people who are stuck in certain positions. So it could be something like therapeutic, you know, it could be with the incarceration. It's like I'm almost thinking like law, with the loyalty of the dog, maybe advocacy, stuff like that, stuff that has to do with how to look after people who are stuck in places. I'm going to go ahead and pull another card for that. Cross. That with the cross is like, there might be something sort of humanitarian, you know, like how to show up for people who are stuck in positions that they can't get out of. What that might mean could be anything from therapy, you know, or being a counselor, even an in-home care provider, like somebody who shows up for people that are in a tight spot. That's your specialty. And you might find that you have a really great skill set for like knowing how to help people that are in positions where they may feel disempowered. So that is your little golden seed, and go ahead and take it and do what you want with it, because you know it's just a little sprout that you can grow into the realization of what your career is going to be like, what your true calling is. And then I see the Phoenix inverted, which is interesting. Okay, so the Phoenix kind of has two positions, right? It has the rising position and it has the sinking position. So that inverted here is like, there may be certain things in your life that have made you feel very alienated, or you might have been stuck in positions, you might have gone through some kind of difficulty or hardship in your life where you felt like impossible, like you were so stuck, you're like, how do I move forward? I know people who were in jail for reasons that I'm like, that seems not fair. That seems crazy. But that's kind of how jail works. Sometimes, not everything is an episode of Law and Order where the right guys go to jail, and you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on out there. So this is my example. This could be something that you're like, I don't resonate with this, and that's fine. But I'm talking to people that may resonate with this, which is like, there are positions that might have felt very enslaving to you. And for you to experience that, you have the unique perspective of being in the headspace of people who have been oppressed in certain ways or held back or restricted. It could be that you are called to be in a situation where you're a therapist or counselor at a domestic violence shelter, something like that. Because, maybe you came up in a house where you saw a lot of that going on in your family, or that you survived it in your own life. And because you know exactly what that road's like, you're kind of perfectly structured to be an angel in that situation to someone else who's going through it. So there's a lot of transcendent energy here. And with the Phoenix inverted, it's saying that you may not even totally recognize the power of your trials and what that has done to you, and how you have the ability to turn it around. You could, with the Phoenix inverted, is saying you might still be going through some shit. You might still be doing the work, as they say. And the benefit of that isn't just to turn around and be like, oh, I suffered so that other people can have a better day, and my sole purpose in life is to contribute to the masses, and I'm only valuable if I can turn this around and help someone and make money. The real magic of this Phoenix is to surrender to the terror of life, and to be able to be like, this is horrible. I feel dried up and frail and hurt and sad, and I'm just going to kind of surrender for a moment. But the Phoenix is about redemption. It's saying you don't have to know how you're going to make your comeback or whatever. You don't know exactly right now, if you're in the down decline, what it's going to look like for you to rise. And it's not just for the benefit of others around you, which is very significant and wonderful. But I want you to feel it like this, from the inside, like your heart can soar and be restored, and that you are strong. And it's time to look into the things that used to overcome you, the things that used to make you feel like you were in a tight, dark corner of your own psyche. And for you to figure out the labyrinth through and go above ground and be able to thrive, you taking care of yourself, is creating a blueprint for how you emotionally conquer situations, or mentally, or whatever you'd like to call it. But when we see that turned around as a gift and your calling, it's saying that your ability to do that in whatever application, whether it's writing a story about it, whether it's starting a podcast, maybe it's being a counselor in a facility where people need help. Maybe it's showing up for people that are society's dregs, that have been overlooked and fallen through the cracks. And you're like, I know how that feels. So I know how to talk to that person because I know the language and I know the map of the landscape. I know how to get out. So I think that your calling has to do with your overcoming of terrible scenarios and how to master yourself within it, find your own joy, and then in turn be like, I know the roads, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep showing up for people. Well, I have a great movie recommendation that's sort of in this vibe. I don't know if you saw Harriet, about Harriet Tubman. Oh my god, I the whole movie I was crying, like my throat was all lumpy, you know what I'm talking about, where you're just like, like I was in the theater and I was sitting next to people. One was a friend and one was somebody I just met in front of the theater, and I was like trying not to be totally psychotically blubbering. It was such an emotional, beautiful film. But yeah, it's like she's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. She literally escapes slavery. Oh my God, like I'm just getting chills. And then anyway, she goes through this incredible journey. And then she keeps going back because she starts to know the roads more and more. She starts to understand the power of trusting her intuition, because she was very intuitive, I would say, like psychic, you know. So she turned what was like the creepiest, most horrible, painful, and punishing situation, and her need to go step by step into a void, into the wilderness, and then turn around and be like, okay, I'm going forward. Oh my God, I'm getting chills. Okay, sorry. So that is a very intense, dramatic, and historic case of what I'm talking about. And don't feel that you have to be like that it has to be all or nothing, or that you have to be like this epic historical figure or have, you know, suffered more to be eligible to overcome your own demons and overcome your own circumstances and figure out how to turn around and help someone out that has been in your position or is. So something to think about, and like how we contribute to the world around us, because the true genius of commerce is we are all integrated, and we all have to figure out what we are supposed to do for the collective. And no matter how you slice it, like we're all here together, and we all have something that we want to do that is a little different than the guy next to us, you know. And the more that we awaken to that and figure out what we're offering, it feels good, you know. It's not just a capitalist pursuit, it's also just like the integration of being within a collective. So the more we have awakened that within us, the more we've embraced the good with the bad and risen with that phoenix energy, the more we have to contribute back into the collective. And that feels wonderful, to be a part of something that's bigger than us in a way that makes us feel like we can serve it and feel good in ourselves, that we know what we are for here. So, I mean, I don't know if everything has to have a purpose or meaning. Like, it's okay, you know, you could sit around for a while, it's fine, no judgment. But I think ultimately, as we awaken to who we really are in this life and what we want to give the world, we start to feel a sort of serendipitous bliss that can only happen when we agree with our soul contracts. And it also prepares us for death. It does, you know. I mean, how many times have you been like near death and you're like, I haven't done this yet, you know what I mean? So just get real with yourself and think, what have I gone through that had felt insurmountable, and I figured it out? How do I know how to help someone else? Not tell them exactly what to do, but when I used to go to school for being a therapist, there was a guy that would say, okay, this is the thing about being a counselor or therapist, and a lot of the people I worked with were straight out of prison. I've never been to prison, and they used to always say, like, you know, if you haven't been down my road, you don't know what you're talking about, you can't tell me. You don't know what it's like to be in there. They wouldn't really exactly say that directly at me. Well, sometimes they would. But the reality is, the approach from someone that is like an alien to the circumstance can feel very alienating to the person they're trying to help. And nobody wants to be told what to do by somebody that doesn't know what the F they're talking about. So another thing about that is, I was going to say before and I interrupted myself, but my teacher, one of my instructors, was saying that being a therapist has so much to do with like somebody is carrying a bucket of water. That's their emotional experience, that's their intensity, that's like their cross to bear, you know. Everyone's a beast of burden in their own way. So for a minute, as a therapist, a counselor, as an advocate of whatever kind, you're not doing more than for a bit, just holding that bucket with them. So for a minute, it lightens their load a little bit, like somebody's carrying this with me. I'm not just here alone in the world. And when you think back at your trials and hardships, you could start designing what that might look like when you think of the voids in your own experience. Like, oh wow, wouldn't that be nice if when I had no money to pay rent and I just got beat up by my abusive spouse or whatever, that there was just like a hotline, or there was someone that could talk to me, that could help me understand or find resources or this or that. Or, you know, when I was suicidal and I called the hotline and the person answering the phone has compassion fatigue, and it just made me feel dead inside and horrible. I wish that person gave a shit. So when you look over the vastness of your intense experiences and you find those little dips where your needs weren't made, that's a new word, okay. I think that you'll find you start to design like what your true calling is. And the calling in the Phoenix there is about rising from bleak circumstance, figuring out what is desperately needed and being like, okay, I got it. And I know now. I'm starting to create my own framework around what is needed to be offered, you know? Maybe you've gone through something like a transition in your life. Like you've transitioned between one gender to the next, and you found, oh my God, there's all these crazy things I did not expect to experience, and I wish that somebody had told me, or I wish that this thing was offered in the world, or this was here. That would have made my life easier. Oh, now maybe I have an idea of how I can offer something back into the world. So your circumstance is going to be unique to you, but this is just here as an idea experiment, a thought experiment, to prompt the spark of thought in your consciousness and give you the remembrance of your free will to decide what the right decision, the right direction is for you. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you have very intense naps after this so that you can process in your subconscious and come out with a good answer of what you really need to do in the next chapter of your life. Sending you love. Thank you. Ooh, interesting. Starting off in a very interesting direction on what your calling is. We see taking up arms. We see dangerous. I don't know if I could say that on here, but you can read it if you want. We have blow your mind inverted and self-created. Wow. What you're calling taking up arms, the past, blow your mind, self-created. This to me is saying that you're calling. Okay, so one thing about your calling, it has to do with, sure, what you're offering, the menu of the universe, but also it has to do with your own personal journey, and it starts with your trials and tribulations and how to figure out what you're really going through and how to take that from the interior of your own psyche and then let it like bloom and bud and blossom. So taking up arms, and that being a little sister card with the dangerous cat and the past. Well, your mind self-created. I think that this has a lot to do with, it could be sex education, or it could be martial arts. It could be that you are some kind of warrior. It you have an inner discipline. It could be that you're a health coach, or someone who is an athlete, or someone who does some kind of innovative sex work. Like, seriously, that sounds all over the map, but what I'm really talking about is root chakra energy. I'm talking about the most like dense realization of being embodied within your skin, and how to feel strong in that place, how to be strong in your own body, and then turn around and figure out how that goes into the world. But I think it starts with your embodiment, you know. So this is gonna, of course, have to be contoured to your particular shape and what you do and what you like. So with the self-created inverted, with the blow your mind inverted, I think that when you feel your calling, you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be an aha moment, like, oh, okay, like, I actually really, really like working out. Like, that's like all I want to do. I maybe don't want to have a job. I don't want to maybe have a career, think about it. Like, but maybe I just want to do this. This is all I want to do. And maybe I've been doing this for a long time. That's who I am. So your calling is just going to be like, I'm almost seeing, you know, when there's a body of water and then we could put a dam, or we can like create a stream coming from it, or we could put a pipe in it and like let that go across the desert to give water somewhere else. Like, the body of water is there, like there's something already happening, and to capitalize on it or figure out how to apply it in the world, we're just gonna have to figure out like what it needs. Does it need a dam? Does it need a pipeline? Does it need like whatever it is, you know, to get that water into a place that is beneficial, or whatever. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? The metaphor? Just nod if you understand. Okay, so basically it's saying that it starts with like kind of physicality. For you, I would just do like a little body scan of like, what does my body want to do? What does this little animal that I'm incarnated in say? What is best for me? And I know that it sounds like night and day being a sex worker or a soldier, but what do these figures have in common, right? So being incarnated, physically manifested, is something that a lot of us, I mean, I personally feel disembodied like all the time. My body is just my meat suit that houses my brain and my yappy little mouth that won't stop talking, blah blah blah. That's me. So this definitely isn't my reading, you know, but for you, it's like you have a good relationship with your body. You understand how your body moves through the world, and it's saying start there. With the blow your mind inverted, I think you're gonna have to come to your own terms with how you put that in the world. I mean, again, I'll just say like easy ideas. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you are a performer of some kind, like athletic, or a dancer. Maybe you are a fighter, you know. You're someone who is in your own skin, and what feels right to you is going to be taking the lead on what your calling is in this world. So that's something to start with. If this did not resonate, that's okay. It's your life, and I'm just trying to give you a little crumb of information that sparks thought into finding the right direction. So thank you for listening. Number 3. Okay, number 3. What do we have for you? So we have recall, memories, we have Island of Jewels, we have amusement, and we have horseplay. So what I'm seeing in these cards is like, I'm seeing nature, and I'm seeing like Well, I mean, I guess the easiest way to put this together is amusement park, but it could be that you have something to do with nature. Maybe you are a gardener, maybe you're a park ranger, maybe you own a facility of some kind, like a retreat center. Maybe you work for something that is about nature, restoring nature, or protecting for it, like something very environmental. So your calling could be anything from being an activist to being a lifeguard, something that has to do with how you show up for the natural world. So, I'm seeing here, of course, like beaches, mountains, forests, but it could be the tundra, it could be that you are in a cubicle all day making calls to save the rainforest or the whales or whatever, I know those references might be a little outdated, but they're still important. So it could also be something like you're working in a garden or you are a landscaper. Your calling has something very strongly to do with nature. And that's a pretty simple direction to point you. So I hope you liked your reading. If you don't, it's okay, try again. And it's just to give you a little tiny seed of thought that you can expand on however you like. And I'm only doing a limited amount of readings on here. I can't cover everyone. But the idea is that you start thinking about what's right for you. And blessings on that journey. Hello. This is number 4. Okay. We have magic carpet. You're a carpet salesman. Thanks. Thanks for listening. Eternal life, abundance, and deep end. Okay, so the first thing I was thinking of is travel. Your calling has a lot to do with traveling. So the magic carpet, and then abundance, deep end, and eternal life. This has something to do with, I'm also seeing like traveling, studying abroad, learning about the world and secrets. And it could be, it sounds insane, but it could be anything from you being a merchant to you being, like an Anthony Bourdain or something like that, where you're like going to different places and showing the world what's up. But I think it has to do with like looking into the splendor of the material world in all of its glory. The material world is often something that's kind of devalued in the spiritual or intellectual communities, which I think is insane. That is so rude and weird, because we are literally embodied here as spirits. That's not to be taken for granted. Otherwise, what's the point, I'm a Taurus, so my experience of spirit, soul, is through the sensual experience of the world and seeing what's around us. There's something that can be very elating and intoxicating about, the value of a nice pair of shoes. And who's to say that's not a sense of spirituality? Even if somebody says that, they're not the authority, they're not the boss of me. So that, with the deep end and eternal life, and what I'm seeing here with the eternal life is like marked by the Sphinx. The Sphinx is one of these very iconic monuments that is mysterious because, the more they study it, they're like, oh, look at these water patterns. This is older than the Egyptian society that was here and like reclaimed it. There's like all of these thoughts and theories, and it's like we don't know who made it maybe. And by looking at it, we could assess certain things. And somehow this object is telling us about history in a way that books never could. So your calling has something to do with the seeking, the creating, the exploring, the documenting, the passion of objects and how they are kind of like relics to us as a society. And it could be that you're an artist and you're making things, and the things have their own sort of psychic value, you know? It could be that you're touching a lot of objects that will outlive you, and that has something to do with your legacy, you know? And it's not to say that your life is as trivial as like a pair of vintage sunglasses or something. That's not at all what I'm saying, but it's like, if you're an artist, if you're a creator or a procurer of objects, you are touching with what will later be like these invisible hands, something that contributes after the ego in the body is dismissed, after your name is forgotten. There's ways that we put things in the world that will outlive us all. And what remains for whoever to discover is a clue into what had happened. So in maybe the cases of some other things I was talking about, like your calling might be social contributions. I don't feel that that's any more important or more glorious or even more spiritual than being an artist or creator or a museum curator or something like that. It's like we are showing up for the world in different ways, and they have different what do you call it? It's like when you drop a pebble in the water and it ripples. They have different ripple effects and like different kinds of dimension and concepts, you know. So even if something that you contribute to the world feels small and trivial, it's the same things that, you know, it could be that you're an archaeologist or something like that, you know, maybe that's your calling. Maybe you're a paleontologist, who knows? But when you look through, when people are digging and they're trying to find out what happened to the Minoans or whatever, and they find these little pieces of pottery, like little tiny pieces of pottery, and they're like, well, this is from when they sacrificed old shells into, you know, like what, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to be smart right now and like think of a reference, and my brain is like, not today, but hopefully you're following me. So it's like these trivial little crumbs that in everyday life are like, oh, what's the significance of a teacup? Like, teacup isn't the same as this and that. Objects are not important. Sure, I mean, I don't think that you should value a teacup over a dear friend in need or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that, like, don't overlook the value of a teacup, you know, because that teacup could be the only surviving witness in 200 years of what y'all were up to, you know what I mean? That could be the only little guy that has anything to say to a future society. So, and maybe also it goes the other way. Maybe if you're not like creating or curing or like taking care of objects, it could be that you're looking backward in time, like I was just saying about being an archaeologist. Like maybe you're looking through and you're seeing how objects have their stories. And that's what we're seeing in the deep end. So your calling could have just so much to do with your passion of objects and what they tell you and what they say and how they communicate. And that has a deep value in this world. And even if it's not something so epic as I made the teacup that is going to be talked about 5,000 years from now when, you know, we dig that up or whatever. It could also be that you're just an everyday merchant, you know, like you have some store that's like making sure that people have pants. And that's not to say that your soul is more or less involved or important, because like seriously, everyone does their part to contribute and make everyone feel healthy and happy. Well, it's not always true, but ideally, we're all doing our part, and who's to say that your calling is any better or worse because it's about material items? I don't think that. I love material items. I'm a materialist. I'm a Taurus. You know, we all have merit in what we're contributing. So your calling is evoking the spirituality and the eternity of how we take care of ourselves through the physical world. And that we're also blessed to be here in the physical world. And manifestation has a lot to do with your purpose here and what you're the steward of in this universe. And I could be wrong, or maybe you're wrong for picking this reading. So go ahead and try again if you don't like your answer, but remember that this is just food for thought, just to get those wheels turning so you can start thinking about what the right direction is. Number five, hi. All right, what is your calling? Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. So the first thing I got was cutting through inverted, crossed by White Lady, Mother of Pearl, countered by the Fool, turning into like a bubble, and solar return. Oh, girl. Okay. And then we also have survival as an outcome card. So this is saying that you have so much to offer. And maybe you can't think outside of your own, I don't know how to say this. Okay. I am a white woman from a first world country. I live in California. I have so many resources and opportunities. I live hand to mouth, but when I think of what I can contribute, and when I realize what I have, what my privileges are, even if I'm poor, and I'm still a poor person in a rich country, you know? So what can I offer the world? What can I offer from my privilege when there's this constant nagging thought in my head? You know, when we live in a capitalist society, we may be susceptible to constantly be broken down so that we feel constantly like we need to buy something. That's just sort of our culture. And it can create a lot of delusions of an inadequacy. And then it creates an obsession of thinking about ourselves. How are we going to get better? How are we going to build ourselves up? And that will take up a lot of bandwidth. You know, we only have so many hours in a day. And if we're thinking a lot about ourselves and what we're not doing or what we don't have, then we could be very blind to the resources we have, not only to take care of ourselves, but also to help the world around us. And you don't have to do like some kind of thing where you're like, I'm gonna go on a missionary trip to Africa. Like, please don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just, I guess do what you want. But I'm just saying, like, you might be a little bit out of touch right now with how much bounty you have in your life. And your calling has a lot to do with getting awakened to your privileges, and from there just kind of getting over yourself, like being like, okay, I'm here, I'm imperfect, my teeth are crooked, I have this and this going on with me, but how am I getting up today? How am I contributing? So your calling isn't just a pastime. It's the work that you do in this world that awakens your soul from its sleep. You know, it's like you really awakening to who you are. Saying currently, you have so much privilege around you, and you're unable to tap into it because you're in the fool mode. You're not seeing what is right in front of you. You know, we have this amazing labyrinth right here, and all of these different faces. You're like trapped in yourself. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about you. You're fine. You're okay. It's saying to overcome that and to look immediately around you at what needs are not being met and how you maybe have an easier time with certain things. And I would start with your calling, basically, with just looking around and thinking, like, normally I say that's not my problem, but today I say, what are my problems? My problems are kind of okay. Like, I got good problems. What am I doing to show up for those around me that have shittier problems? Not that it's a competition, we're all suffering. It's not saying somebody's suffering is better than your suffering, or they deserve to have more sympathy. We all have to live in our own private hells, no doubt, but it's saying to check yourself a little bit and to start looking around like, well, like, what do I have to offer? How am I showing up to the world around me? Even when I think that, you know, I'm impoverished or I'm lacking, because that's how we're supposed to think, so we keep buying stuff. And that's fine, but it's saying don't get caught in it, and just to look at what's around you. You might be looking at me like this, like, what is she trying to tell me? How rude, how disrespectful, she doesn't know me. But I don't. I'm just talking to a camera right now. You're not here, it's just me. It's just me talking to someone that might hear this message at a moment where they have a window to their soul open that's like, oh yeah, I actually do register that. And because I'm not talking to you directly, don't take it personally, because it's not personal. It's impersonal. And it's something that happens to a lot of us, including me, you know? So there's a lot being taken for granted. And it's saying when you're ready, just to look around and say, like, I have been fixating on stuff that is literally so not important. What is needed of me right now? And taking a meditation on that is a beautiful thing, to take that kind of integrity and accountability into your heart. Because, you know, like, problems are like a train track. They'll just keep going and going and going and going as long as you follow that. There'll be no shortage of problems and issues and things to complain about and fix, because that's how we work. That's how human beings advance. We're problem solvers. We're thinking about things that irritate us, are so important to us, because they keep instigating us to keep growing and growing and growing. But it's saying, like, maybe hop on a different train line. Like, okay, I'm good over here. Like, I could keep like complaining about, like, if my curtains are cute enough for my Instagram or this or that, you know, I could keep like bugging out on that forever. But I could also kind of switch gears and start thinking about, oh, what are these other lines around me? How am I contributing to the world? And I actually have a good standing. So the trick of the universe is there's problems everywhere. Just remember that. And you do have problems, sure, we all do. But it could be that you're fine. It could be that you're fine. Because the card I pulled here was survival. That was the last card. So there's a huge difference between, like, the problem of being at home with your family and everyone is getting on your nerves, to being homeless and living in a tent under the freeway and having a sickness and not being able to get medicine or food and boiling alive in a tent, and everyone thinking you're too weird and stinky to even touch or to check in with. Because, you know what I mean? Like, not to say that we always have to think about that every time. We shouldn't feel guilty about our small pleasures or our complaints. But it's saying, like, when we start to tilt the lens in a different way, I think that being able to offer things to people is so good for the soul. It's so good for the psyche. Being able to offer things for people, it starts to raise us up, you know? And it starts to humble us and realize, oh my God, I have so many things to be grateful for. And that's very important. And I think it makes us feel even killed in our soul. And that is the most important thing. is the more we start leveling out our souls, the way that we relate to those around us, not in just acts of kindness that go overtly like, I like donated time to a soup kitchen, I'm nice, I'm a saint. Like, but when we start to feel it within ourselves, then when we interact with people, we're creating a better, a better afternoon for someone. They're calming down. I'm calming down. We're all good. What's going to happen this evening when something starts to rock our boats and we're starting on a platform that's a little bit more even? We are able to think clearer. We're able to act nicer. We're able to respond in a more even way because our footing is more and more even. So I don't think we're going to delete problems ever, but what we're doing is working to feel better about the current moment, and as we go forward, we'll figure it out. But it's starting your calling from a place of like, the things that I'm paying attention to right now today maybe aren't the most important things. And this is sort of the story of Siddhartha, the Buddha. He was a little prince. He was a hot, sexy prince. I don't know if you saw, what was it? A movie called Little Buddha. Oh my God, Keanu Reeves plays so fun. Keanu Reeves in eyeliner as young Siddhartha. Oh my God. See the movie just for that. But it's about coming from a place of extreme privilege and then being like, I feel like there's something more in the world. Like, what does that look like? And going and figuring out what that is and how to contribute. So your story is going to be interesting. And just listen, like, I've had my own troubles for sure. But at the end of the day, when I think like, oh, check your privilege, like, not that I'm not allowed my pain or troubles or whatever, but when I'm like, actually, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. Look at all the bounty around me. It starts to open my eyes a little bit and like thinking of myself as the hero of my life, not just someone that is like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. It gets me out of my complaint zone. Not always, I love to complain, but I'm just saying, like, it's a shift of consciousness into you feeling empowered and awakening to what you have to offer this world. So it's just a little thought. It's just a little thought to go in your head and start awakening and churning those realizations on what path you want to take in this life. And I'm sending you so much love. If this is not your reading, that's okay. Just pick a different one or delete my number. I don't care. It's all good. Bye.